Boys, with Thanksgiving now approaching, I wanted to make a video on fighters we're thankful for. Fighters that when it comes to the UFC, we can just look out and say, thank you for being here. You are a big component for why said division is special and why it's really entertaining. Now, when it comes to the requirements for the fighter I picked, it varies pretty much. There's no real specific guy where I'm just like, you need to follow XYZ to, follow here. I'll just let you show that this can range from, being a champion all the way to a guy that's, 3 or 4 fights maybe into being with the UFC. But with that, I want to start off with heavyweight. I mean, this is pretty obvious right now. If you don't know who this is, you're a clown. It's Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall has been the biggest bastion for life in the heavyweight division. Now is the interim champ. We've all talked about it through how a year ago, back in October, the division was in a pretty dark place where John Jones was about to have his curtain call fight with Stipe. All of a sudden, Tom comes in and fills in after John gets injured. He comes in and fights a replacement with Sergey. He knocks him out. And since then, he's been constantly pushing to fight John Jones. And hopefully, come this July International Fight Week, we can finally get that fight that we've all been wanting, the biggest fight in the sport right now. And when it comes to Tom, the stats speak for themselves. 8-1 in the UFC. All of them have been stoppage. All but one of them have been in the first round. 7 performances of the night, with wins now over half of the top 10. The only guys that really are in that category that he's not faced are obviously Cyril Gane, who is more focused on making movies right now than he is, fighting for the interim championship. And along with Gelton Almeida, those are really the only 2 guys that, Tom has not faced yet. But besides that, you look at it, he destroyed Alexander Volkov. He defeated Sergey Pavlovich, defeated Curtis Blades, defeated Sergey Spivak, defeated Marcin Tybura. He's just been a marauder, and he's going to be a guy that, we as fans can confidently say, as the guy with the shortest average fight time, we're going to be enjoying him for a long time. And definitely chance to be what I imagine by potentially the end of next year, the GOAT of heavyweight. And as for light heavyweight, the obvious answer here is Pereira, to be honest. The guy in the past year has just put on a absolute level of greatness with practically 4 title fights in the span of a year. But I wanted to go another route, and I decided to go with Carlos Ulberg. Obviously, a member of the crew of Izzy and Volk. Started the UFC with a loss back in 2021 against Kenny Kennedy and Njoku. In a sense, then he's won 7 in a row. 5 of those are by stoppage. And the big thing that chose him for why I'm really thankful for him being light heavyweight is that it's fresh blood. When you look really at the top of the rankings for light heavyweight, it's under Pereira. He's about to face Magomed Ankalaev earlier next year, but he's already faced Yuri, he's already faced Jamal, he's already faced Jan, he's already beaten Khalil. You want really someone new there that, we imagine if, Tom and Jones does take a while and Pereira is going to eventually want to move up, it's going to, and the fact that the guy fights like 500 times a year, he's going to be wanting some fresh blood. And somebody like Carlos Ulberg definitely fits the bill as a entertaining kickboxer. He's a guy that's already beaten Alonzo Menafield in 12 seconds. Also, just recently now beaten Volkan Ozdemir. And now where he's in a position of, definitely in top 10, if he fights, say, Khalil Roundtree, that's, earning a potential title shot. Like I mentioned earlier, Pereira's going to want, stay active, imagine, until, possibly December of next year for when he, wants to move up. And he's going to want someone new. And Carlos Ulberg can definitely fill that. The UFC likes to go to Australia twice a year. That brings up another point. The fact that he's a new name for that region with Izzy and Volkanovski now getting older and, starting to fade out of their prime. That area, if they're going to want, to stay, as a big name and a big commodity, you're going to want to need a new name, and Carlos Ulberg fits that bill. And in addition to that, when it comes to his bright future, if he keeps winning, if he beats Khalil, he's going to be a guy that's going to get fame very, very quickly. Because I'll be honest, fellow guy here, all right? No, we're going to call a spade a spade. Dude is got looks. He has got looks. And, if you keep winning like that, you're not going to be looking at New Zealand's version of The Bachelor. You're going to be coming to the States and you're playing the American version of The Bachelor because the guy's a part-time model and he has got a, Greek god, almost Adonis-like physique. Again, not mention, we're calling a spade, all right? We just got to mention the guy's got it. Now, moving on over to middleweight, there are a variety of ways you could go with this, but personally, this is a guy that I think has definitely been deserving of getting some fame and some much-deserved credit that he's been getting over these past couple months. That's got to be Fluffy Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez started off 1-2 in the UFC, Lost to Kevin Holland, obviously, back in 2020. And since then, he's been on a tear. He's gone 6-0. And he's a guy that when it comes to being on the ground and fighting, he delivers damage. He showed that most recently when he was demolishing Michel Pereira. He showed it even earlier when he was facing Roman Kopylov. He did it as well earlier last year when he was fighting Edmund Shabazian. He is a guy that is a just absolute beast on the ground and really becoming someone that is, kind of getting, intimidated for a lot of guys higher parts of middleweight that don't really want to be facing a guy like Fluffy lower in the ranks. And by the end of next year, he can be that Magomed Ankalaev of 185 where, if he's a top 5 guy and whoever that might be champion, if that's DDP, if that's, possibly Chimaev or Strickland, they ain't going to be wanting to face Fluffy Hernandez because this guy has got, that gas tank where he can just go all, 5 rounds, all 25 minutes. And having already announced that he will be facing Brendan Allen in Seattle early next year, he is really going to be climbing his way up the mountain. I think he'll be lucky to get past, Marvin Vettori, Jerry Cannonier, some of the older guard of 185 and really get that opportunity to climb up to the vaunted top 5 of 185. Now, moving back down to 170, for welterweight. There are a couple guys that I wanted to go with. The guy I initially was considering was going to be Jack Della Maddalena for the simple fact that he called out Shavkat Rakhmonov. No one is doing that, so that gives you my praise. Also, someone that I was considering was going to be Carlos Prates, but I don't want to do that just yet. Plus, I think he's going to be getting a lot of praise come the end of December when we give our awards, and he's going to be the clear, prospect newcomer of 2024. So for that reason, I want to decide and go with Joaquin Buckley. Joaquin Buckley has been a big winner. I'd say probably the biggest winner besides Bilal Muhammad this year among the welterweight division. Many people remember him as just, that guy from 2020 that had the incredible, spinning heel kick KO from 2020, the KO of the year. And he was since then has become more than just, this matrix highlight of a fighter, just a, one-off guy. After losing those 2 fights at middleweight to Nasruddin Imavov and Chris Curtis, both of which are top 15 talent. No shame in that. But since then, he returned back down to welterweight. And this year really started to gain traction now with the 5-fight winning streak. But started in the beginning of this year with facing Vicente Luque, pulling the upset at Atlantic City and getting into the top 15. And then after, asking Dana at UFC 300 for a fight in St. Louis, he got Nursultan Ruziboyev, where he really got to show that, this ain't going to be some easy cakewalk for Ruziboyev to just jump up to both 170 and 185 in the top 15. Really proved his talent in his hometown in St. Louis against him. And then back in October, had a real big highlight, KOing Stephen Thompson, only the second guy ever to do that, joining Anthony Pettis. And now, after the announcement that he'll be fighting Colby Covington in December, he's really got a chance now to definitely get into the top 5 and go potential 4-0, which brings up a very interesting point that he is a very active fighter that deserves his praise. In 2020, he fought 4 times. In 2022, he fought 4 times. And now this year, he will have fought 4 times. Definitely a round of applause for Joaquin Buckley, a guy that since really the beginning of this year has become as again I'll say, outside of Bilal Muhammad, I don't think there's anyone else that has become a bigger winner in 2024 at welterweight besides him. Maybe the exception could be Ian Gary if he's able to upset Shavkat next month. And moving down to lightweight, this is someone that obviously didn't have the best 2024, but it's Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje is an automatic must-watch. He is the guy that I will forever be thankful for. He's the definition of an entertaining fighter. He's never been in a boring fight. His fight against Michael Chandler, I will say to this day, is my favorite fight of all time. It was the fight that made me say, I must watch the sport for the rest of my time. When it comes to Gaethje, he is a violent fighter. He showed that constantly all 24-ish minutes against Tony Ferguson. Across his entire time with the UFC, he has been through 13 fights, 13 post-fight performance bonuses, BMF champion. That is true. When it comes to, all the guys that have been BMFs, Masvidal, obviously Gaethje, and now Holloway, I would argue that Justin Gaethje exemplifies being the BMF better than anyone, where he is a guy that goes out on his shield, as he did, against Poirier, back their first time they fought, and obviously most recently against Max. But at the same time, he has guys going out on their shield where he KOs James Vick. He KOs Barbosa. He obviously KO'd Poirier to win the title. Justin Gaethje will forever be one of my favorite fighters and a guy that I'll always be thankful for. And when it comes to getting fans into the sport, Justin Gaethje is a guy that you show to a new person. You say, you want to watch highlights, you want to know what the UFC is about, watch him. And continuing onward here now at featherweight, I wanted to go with, obviously the easy answer here is Ilya, but given his traction with much of the fans after KOing both Max and Volkanovski earlier this year, he is a guy that we could go with, but I decided to go with Diego Lopez, where Diego Lopez is truly like a UFC career mode plot armor. I mean, the guy just has a story straight out of almost, a Creed movie. He loses on the Contender Series. Now, this is a key part. After the Contender Series, he fights 3 times during that span, where you have a lot of guys after that loss, they try to get one win and just kind of run back and say, Dana, give me my another shot. In the words of Blumont, Dana, give me my title shot. But he kind of showed that he is a very active guy, and it proved to help him where on a week's notice, he fights Movsar Evloev at UFC 288. Loses in valiant effort, losing a unanimous decision. But right there, people were like, okay, Diego Lopez, this guy can, be exciting. And since then, he has gone an absolute tear. Definitely a guy to be thankful for. Won 3 straight first-round stoppages against Gavin Tucker, Pat Sabatini, Sadiq Youssef at 300. He then beats Dan Ige, which he does not get enough credit for, initially fighting Ortega at 145. It then gets bumped up to lightweight the day before, and then Ortega's not able to fight. He then fights Dan Ige at catchweight on 3 hours notice, wins by decision. I don't really want to judge much of his performance there because the guy was just going through an absolute cyclone of weight changes. Finally beats Brian Ortega at UFC 306 at the Sphere, nearly KO him in the first round, and most critically, and this is something that's really gotten him past Movsar, is that since their match last year, Diego's gone 5-0, while Movsar has only fought once and won, against Arnold Allen. So Diego Lopez definitely got to be fighting for it. In my opinion, this is the most fun match with Ilya. I'm not going to say he has the best chance of beating Ilya, although when it comes to first round, Ilya's really only weakness was, that fight against Jai Herbert where he got caught early. Diego obviously has shown a knack of getting opponents early and landing that perfect punch. That is why I think that, if they are to fight, next year, that could be the most fun opponent for Ilya Topuria to face at 145. Continuing onward, we now have bantamweight. Bantamweight, this is pretty easy. It's everyone's favorite guy. It's Sean O'Malley. I'll answer this. Take Sean away. Who excites you at bantamweight? Who is it? Merab is like a ghost of a champion. No one, even remembers that he is, he's carrying the belt. Umar, he is a very talented person after, defeating Corey Sandhagen like he did, but it almost feels like, oh, okay, there's another Dagestani that's, going to be champion. Not like, where Islam is, seen as like the pound for pound king. Peter Yan, obviously, exciting champ, but the fact that he already lost to Merab as badly as he did kind of doesn't have any excitement if they do a rematch after his win over Figueiredo. Corey Sandhagen has just lost. There's no one really that you're like, wow, 135 is in great hands right now, and it's why it feels, kind of like a dead division since Sean lost to Merab back at 306. But taking that away, O'Malley is a guy that brings massive interest from casual fans. This is why, fans I don't think are grateful enough to Sean, where he gets interest from the casual fans. He gets interest from Pat McAfee's show. Those type of people are what I would like to consider, the casual MMA fan. They're not going to be watching, every pay-per-view, but when you have someone like him that's able to bring in interest, that is what you want. That makes a medium card to a good card, we'll say, and it makes a good card into a massive card. That is why UFC 299 felt like a massive card. And to go with that, the reason that Sean is exciting, it's his style. The guy's always looking for the KO. Obviously, in my opinion, top 5 boxer in the UFC. While he does have favorable treatment from the UFC when he was climbing up back in 2021, 2022, he really kind of solidified this idea for main card pay-per-views where your opening fight is that exciting prospect. In the future, that is going to be Peyton Talbot, That can be Carlos Prates. That could be Michael Morales. It can be a lot of guys that can credit Sean as the guy that started, the main card opener for pay-per-view being a, highly touted prospect. Finally, at flyweight, I honestly wanted to go with Kayas Kerr right here because I felt that, if he wins, you really get new life into the division. You have, new exciting matchups. But given that he hasn't fought yet, I say we'll go with Brandon Royval. Brandon Royval, Raw Dog. Raw Dog is a dog. He is a high-octane fighter. In his last 3 fights, I know that includes, his loss unanimously to Pantoja. All were instances where he landed 100+ significant strikes. He is a guy that, even when he's, looking like he was going to lose. I mean, I remember vividly watching Moreno the second time they fought earlier this year in Mexico. It was looking like he was going to lose, but the fact that he just kept being persevering and just kept, throwing punches, even if, they weren't landing and just, dropping Moreno to the floor, they did amount to it. And finally were why he won by split decision. That's why I'm really thankful to Royval as being, that guy that is very exciting. Speaking of exciting, I mean, he's got 4 fight of the nights when it comes to that division where, they kind of lack. A lot of guys, could just be fainting. Raw Dog does not do that. He is a guy that is just going to be constantly in your grill and trying to, get it done. And when it comes to 2024, I'd argue he probably has, I wouldn't say the best 2024 of flyweights. Obviously, that could go to Pantoja if he wins, next month. But it is a very likable performance. He beat Moreno. I know obviously people like Moreno, but the fact that Royval was able to, get a deserving win over that, and then obviously, take Tatsuro Taira's 0. Both were very good fights. And it's why that for flyweight, which doesn't have the best quality of fighters, or I'd say the most, he is a guy that we should be thankful for. But with that, let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with the fighters I picked for each division? I imagine that there are probably going to be some you're going to disagree. You might not think, Justin might be the most, thankful for. You might think, Royval, whoever it might be, Carlos Solberg. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you have any other themed videos for suggestions, I know with Christmas approaching, there are a lot of ideas. Obviously, with the UFC calendar ending in a couple weeks, we have plenty of things coming the way. But with that, like, subscribe, share the video, all that jazz. Thanks for watching. I'm Casual Chris, and I'll see you later.